Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 5.8G Alive, your magazine program presented by Connections 50 Plus. All you in the 50 to 80 generation, where we're getting ready to live our best life. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. With me, as always.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, the other co-creator of Connections 50 Plus. Terri-Ann, we have a fantastic show today, too.
Well, we're following up on our series, and to remind everybody, this new series is all about getting ready. We're in the last quarter. We finished COVID, we survived. 3 years of COVID, we survived. 2023 is our year. So there are important things we have to deal with. For the last 2 weeks, we've had a double show where we spoke to Andrew Nunez of Urbassist, and we talked about our real assets, our homes, protecting them. And now we're getting into another juicy thing. We're going to be talking to a lawyer. But Jennifer, we're talking with a difference. We're not just talking on will. We are looking at what you really have to prepare for and some of the attitudes that we have to shake to think clearly about how do we prepare, because why is that so important? Why are we in a heightened need to prepare now? Jennifer, what do you think?
No, I know, and I will always say, coming from the financial sector, I really appreciate the importance of understanding, certain legal aspect and to do it right, do it right, and the importance of using a professional to do it right.
And there's one other thing that we are going to be, one theme you're going to see going through our programs, because of course we never do anything without a reason. You all know that, okay? It's that, honest to goodness, when we look at the children and the grandchildren, we love them to death. We love them to death. But we know that they do not have our capacity and what is facing them in this life, financially, socially, and everything else. It's tough. They don't have our resilience. So we have to be more proactive in taking care of our business. And that's why we're doing this series. So, Jennifer, we have to talk about who we're going into.
Yes.
Lawyer time. $1 sign.
Okay, as we mentioned, we have this guest here to tell us all about how we can put our house in order in the legal way. So we welcome Mr. Bernard Shepherd, and Bernard is the Senior Partner, Notary Public of Lex Caribbean. Bernard, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I never turned down an offer of two beautiful women.
Oh, thank you. So Bernard, we asked you here because we are very, very concerned about our group, our cohort, the 5.8G cohort. And when we say 5.8G, we're speaking about people 50 to 80 generation. Okay. And we have found, in our chat with our group, that it is so important and for us to, talk about several things. We have started last week but we had 2 sessions talking about putting, about property, protecting your property. And this led us right on to chatting with you, not just about protecting your property, but we now look at our different assets and really making sure that we plan properly at this stage. So, but before I ask you any question, I really would like you to just chat a bit about you in terms of your experience, before we move on.
Okay, well, I'm an attorney at law. I've been an attorney at law since 1995, which means I'm my 27th year or somewhere around there. I spent 5 years at the Attorney General's office. And then from there, I moved on to Lex Caribbean in 2000, where I am presently, I'm the senior partner at Lex Caribbean, and I'm also a notary public. I'm a member of the disciplinary committee for lawyers. I sit on a number of boards. My practice area really and truly is in the corporate commercial field, as well as the conveyancing and real property field. So you've hit it smack in the head when you speak about protecting property and stuff.
Yeah.
I have some extensive experience also in probate, from the purposes of basically just providing estate management to people in terms of how they can go about setting up trust, how they can protect their assets, and just providing that general sort of legal advice to persons of a certain vintage. And I like how you put it there, the 5.8 vintage, because I think it's important. I consider that those generations to be the earning generations. So they were the people who started with nothing, who built something, and now they have to make a decision as to what will I do with the things that I have earned during my lifetime.
Wow. That's it. Bernard, as you said that, we at this generation also very concerned, and because of course we have, you said, earning and time, we really have saved, put away, invested in property, etc. But we tend to be very, very, I would say, scared in terms of the decision making at this stage, whether we should, who we could trust in the family, who we could tell, they say our business, tell about our business, how much we have. We tend to be a bit secretive and hold back to do anything because of that trust. What would you suggest? How can we go about putting and starting to put our house in order in that respect?
Well, I think it's important that one has to understand the idiosyncrasies of that generation. Those generations, I should say, those are the persons who really do talk the business in public. And yes, you are correct. Those generations are the distrusting generations, They say that, when people used to say, people mustn't know what's going on in your house, kind of thing. But what is important is that you also have to understand that what you have worked so hard to build can topple in 3 seconds because you have failed to do what you are supposed to do. And I like to start these presentations by telling people this. It is your property. You have to make this decision as to how you should dispense with your property, not nobody else. I know you might feel a sense of emotional obligation to give somebody something, but you don't have to. I know you might want to give somebody in terms of how it go low, but you will be sitting down at the right hand of next to who. So you don't need to worry about that. At the end of the day, you need to prevent an atomic bomb from exploding in your family. And I think the first consideration, I always tell people, the nicest families, once the matriarch or the patriarch passes, then you see the true animals in the family. You see all the Borak and them.
You see the love.
Yes, you see the love, the real love. The Borak and them, they come out, right? And when them Borak and them come out, because Jennifer might be the sweetest person. You see how she clutching her pearls? And every morning she's going and they think she's the epitome of respectability. But hear what? Mommy always had a pair of gold earrings. And mommy secretly told her that she leaving them gold earrings for Jennifer. But of course, another sister eyeing them gold earrings. You know, long she, because mommy always used to allow the other sister to use the gold earring, not Jennifer, the other sister. So the other sister feels a sense of entitlement to those gold earrings. So when mommy has gone on to greener pasture, what tends to happen is there's war between Jennifer and that older sister over those gold earrings. So there's a responsibility and what we call a testator. Do a will now. If you do the will, you're not going to dead in the morning. The one thing you're sure of is that you're going to dead, right? With or without a will. And it is so strange. The law is completely different as it relates to, well, if you have a will and if you don't have a will. And I guess we will get into those discussions a little later on. But people, it is important that you do a will. And Jennifer touched on a critical consideration. Many people feel they could be bush lawyers. You are not a lawyer, right? And it's, yes, you can do your own will. I'll be the first to admit you can do your own will. The problem is you cannot manage yourself. And if you are managing your own emotional baggage, you may end up making a bad decision. So people go on the internet and they download wills and they do this and they do that. No, you can't advise yourself. And all the little intricacies, you are not asking yourself the right question. Yeah. So a lawyer will know exactly what to ask, how to ask it, so as to be able to extract the best solution for you.
Yeah, I think there's in terms of framing our discussion also, you know, one of the things that and Jennifer, I'm going to start introducing the other in terms of the context. We have been looking at one of the reasons we don't prepare, and we feel that we don't have to because some beloved children or some whatever, they will take care. They will take care. They will do what needs to be done. And I'm not talking here about the fight for the gold earrings that Jennifer and the sister looking at or whatever it is that we believe that our children who are that generation 20, let's say 20 to 46, 45, or 20 to 50 will step in. But the demographics of employment, of illness, of risk to life is showing clearly that that generation is not as established or as secure, as stable or healthy as our generations. And it is very likely that they are not going to be in a position to carry on with our affairs as we feel that they could. And I think that is another thing that we need to take into consideration. And I don't know if there's a legal context before we get in the apart from, I love your statement that we have to make sure that what we earned is taken care of. But even if we have well-meaning children, they may just not have the capacity to carry on with what we have built. Is that a reasonable position for us to consider?
It is actually, and it starts off on the premise again, and I want to keep the gold earrings as the common thread going through because it's going to impact on everything that happens. The take care of syndrome. You know, no parent wants to admit that they have a bastard child or a prodigal son. And, you know, in our society, we hear the parent, he was a nice boy. Well, every parent, and if you look at it from a contextual position, I have nice children. they all are nice, they will take care, but they will not. They will take care of themselves.
Yes.
You know, it will be sharks in a barrel. But at the end of the day, you can't expect as a person to have taken care of someone all of your life, and then all of a sudden you drop down and they must now be entrusted with that, or the responsibilities, the powers, the decision making to be able to do that overnight. They have no experience. So no, they will not be able to do it. The second thing is, I think what you're trying to talk about, the intergenerational conflicts between millennials versus Gen Y and Gen Zs and all that kind of thing. So millennials have a different perspective on life. So, for example, my generation, which is Generation Y, which is on the cusp of the millennials, we wanted to provide a better life for our children. So we overcompensated.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, I grew up in a system where my grandmother said, go get a government job, stay in that job, make sure you have job security. Millennials do not believe in job security. But what I am finding, because I mentor a lot of young people also, the millennials who are now 35 and 36, they got up one morning and the harsh reality hit them. Oh my God, I have no job security. I am about to turn 40. I do not own a house. I do not have any assets. I do not have a pension. All I have is a motor vehicle and bling. And that bling is really not worth anything, because bling is changing so fast that it's not carrying any investment value. So yes, you are correct.
Yep. The blingers can't take care of us. So it's even
No.
more critical that we have to take care of things while we are here. Great.
Indeed. Indeed. And you also have to take care of them as well as your grandchildren, because that's the whole purpose of estate planning, is to be able to foresee how can I provide for my loved ones even when I am not here physically.
Yeah. Yeah. That's some cold ice water you just throw on our cohort there. You just
I just wanted to know, well, I like to keep it real. I like to keep, the millennials say you must own it. You must own it.
The shiver went down the spine, you know, because one of the things we also don't want to do is for them to go back into hoarding mode and therefore hoard and prevent themselves from living their best life. Because I think many of them subconsciously know this is a fact, that what they have has to stretch over 2-3 generations, and then they get back into sacrificial mode, and who is sacrificed other than self? And we don't think that is necessary for our 5.8G.
Yeah.
Bernard, it really scares our cohort when they think about that. In some cases also, I'm just going to extend a bit. You may find that those of us who may have, let's say, only just 2 children or 1, some may be overseas and, you know, they're not coming back at all. You may have those who may die before their parents, so you end up sort of having no immediate family. In terms of preparation, in terms of securing your assets in such a way that even if you have no one, that you can put something in place that you're going to be taken care of for the rest of your life. What would you suggest there?
Okay. So there are a number of things that you can do. And I want to touch on 2 things. I want to just, and I'm glad we're not spending a lot of time dealing with the legal requirements of a will, because I don't want people to get into the habit of doing wills.
No.
It is not a good practice. You know, a lawyer who has himself as an attorney has a fool for an attorney. So you will be advising yourself. So there are 2 issues actually. And I want to just give you what the law is. Generally, if you have a will, you are the person who determines how your assets are to be distributed post your departure. right? You make that decision. You say, I leave this for this, I leave that for that. Take the this, take the that, wish you get this, wish you get that. You will make that determination. You will assess the strength of the person, you will assess the character of the children, and whoever else, because you may also have, Jennifer, a loyal housekeeper who has been with you for quite a long time, and that person is now integrated into your family. Additionally, we live in a society whereby, and I have to be brutally honest, many of us have children who are not our biological children. We may have taken somebody's child and treated that person as a child of the family. Sometimes they live in the same house with us, but sometimes we finance that child's entire education. Yeah. We finance their upbringing. So that child is also entitled to benefit from the fruits of your rewards, right? That's important. If you don't have a will, the law says that your spouse gets half and the children gets the other half, to be shared equally. And of course, if you have no children, there's a certain, it goes down and who takes and that sort of thing. So there's a well-defined structure. So you will find that for people who have no children, and you'll find a lot of them in my generation, because we were trained to study, get a good job. Many of the people in my generation, they don't have children, or they have one child. So that one child would have benefited 100%. And I will tell, sometimes people come by me to do a will, and I said, well, how many children do you have? They say, well, I have one child. If it's a woman, I have a lot of female friends, because as you know, UWI is predominantly the female of the species. And I tell all my male friends, if you can't relate to women, then you have a problem, a serious problem, because they are the ones who are going to form the society as we evolve, I should say. So you only have one child, you're not married. Why are you making a will? Don't spend that money. I'm looking at your age too, eh? I'm looking at your age. But but I also advise them, if you're bringing a mister into the play, a little gentleman caller, because you know what's going on now. Yeah. Everything that would have been unacceptable in our generation, there's no acceptable. It is acceptable now for an older woman and a younger guy. So young guys are now being attracted to older women because, one, older women have a certain sense of responsibility, maturity, experience. But let's face facts. They also have a certain amount of economic gravitas.
Exactly.
They have house, car, pearls, gold,
money, cash,
purchasing power.
Right.
Right. So when I look at the both of you all there, I expect you all to be driving a certain type of car. I expect you all to be living a certain lifestyle. And I want that lifestyle because I don't intend to work very hard. And that's the general ethos of young men these days. You know, live hard, die young. So we have to now provide that guidance to them. If your children live abroad, and I would say, you know, we can say do a trust where your wealth, you are provided for, your money goes towards your livelihood. If you have to go into what I consider to be a retirement home, funds from the account must come out of here and it must be paid here. You appoint a trustee. All of those things, the law permits all of that. Unfortunately, in our society, we do not utilize those services. Yeah. And I think those things are critical because you would find somebody who you know was a big pappy long time. And then when you look at the conditions in which they're living, it's because they have one daughter or three daughters, or they give one of them the bank card. But the young person, they blinging from head to toe while the mother drinking bush tea without milk. So it's important that guidance be given so that they understand that the power resides in you. And you have to take that power away. Don't feel that because the child did well, the child will do well with you. Yeah. So we always feel that the most educated is the one to manage. That one, she had no time.
Hush, Bernard, hush, my parents listening.
It's not necessary that case. And you have to also know your pick-me them. If you know your pick-me, you have to know that Jennifer, while she is good economically, she is not a good people person, and the rest of the family, they hate her. So she is not going to be the best person in a time of crisis to be able to manage that crisis. I better give it to Janice, because Janice is the person who they all love her, and she's the voice of reason. So all of those things, when you sit down with a professional like myself, you know, we would be able to ask those salient and important questions so as to be able to provide you with the best solution and the best guidance.
Yep. That is it hits so many points that we know, but we're afraid to say, because how it can look, and how can I choose one child over the rest? And I can't choose, because you also have the issue of we hopping out and leaving a very vague, crazy kind of will, and well, all you could see about it, I could be dead, so I'm not the bad guy. I did not choose this one over that one. You will see about it, and leaving chaos behind. We also are cowards in that way, and I don't think that's prudent at all.
And more importantly, you might do something stupid also. You may have 9 children and say, I've given them the property in equal share. Each should have a 1/9 interest. So of course, if they're infighting, you can't do nothing. You can't do anything with it. They're fighting, and then you put one of the children as the executor. And that is the bad crab among all of them. So of course she feels she has the ultimate power, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. Those things, and they're not prudent at all. You may also want to do as a person, say, well, of the 9 children, I have one of them, and she does not have a home, but she has my grandchild. So I will give her a life interest in the home, or until the child reaches the age of 18, or until she secures something, or until she gets married. Because you really don't want her to be living there with the mist, and it causes problems in the family. Those are things you have to think about. And I find the 5.0 generation, they mean well, they are well intended, but they really and truly need to now go out there and seek the guidance. Because to be fair to them also, they're not a generation that was accustomed to retaining professional services.
Yes.
They were the generation that actually assisted the persons who sought professional services. They were the executive secretaries. They were the housekeepers. They were the what I consider the mezzanine floor. But so they don't know about going out and getting accounting advice, tax advice. They fill out their own tax form. So they didn't know they could get a benefit by doing certain things. They did it religiously, but they just didn't know.
Yes.
Bernard, you are so correct. You're talking and I'm thinking, and I like to pound my mom on the show a bit, because at her age, at age 100 recently, again, we always chat with her about making a decision, and she made us understand. Not until she's dead, we will know who the house going to. And there's nothing we can do to convince her. But I mean, she's at that, really at the other end. But I also know of situations and where, and you mentioned it, it has been, I think that is what is happening long ago. That's all they knew. That if you have this one property, it's supposed to remain in the family, for the family. And this thing about, so whoever don't have a roof over the head will be able to stay there, or who overseas and coming back could stay there. But at the end of the day, after they die and they could move on to, it's always seemed to be that confusion.
You have grass growing
because
on the house.
you know,
Grass will grow on
always,
the house.
always, always. And I wonder if it's not best to just let them, especially when there's a large family, just sell it and divide. Because if not, there are situations, and again, I know coming home in terms of our situation, where you would always find the one who, for whatever reason, chose or could be not being able to buy their own home, etc., remaining in that house, and they're there, and then the children and the grants and everything, and the others would never benefit from it. So would you say or advise, and where you have a large family and just one property, it may be best to just let them sell it and divide the proceeds?
Indeed, indeed. And all of those things could be included in the will. Eh? You can say anything in your will, anything. Your will could be one page, it could be 4 lines, it could be a book about all your emotional issues. And you know, and the law does permit an executor or a legal personal representative to sell property without resort to the beneficiaries. Eh?
Yeah.
So where you have
Okay.
situation where you have 20 people who inherit the property and somebody is appointed as the executor or the LPR if you died intestate. And I have to say, for those persons who don't know, if you died with a will, you're deemed to have died testate, and usually you would use the word probate. You have to probate the estate, which is what I will touch on that a little later on. And then you also have somebody, if you die without a will, that is what you call intestate, right? So you don't have that, and then you will appoint, the court will appoint an LPR, which is a legal personal representative, and there's a process by which that is done. It is defined in the act, and who can apply first, spouses first, then children, and whoever else, and then grants. There's a process.
Okay.
So in situations like the LPR and the executor, the executrix, they can do that and split the proceeds equally. So if you have a half share interest in if the 9 of you all have a half share, I will sell the house, give my father half of it, and the other half, I will split it down the middle. And you don't have a recourse to stop the LPR from doing those things.
Okay.
But also those things can be prevented when you have a will. You can simply just say, sell all my assets, divvy it up X, Y, and Z, because I may not want somebody to have 1/9. I may have somebody to have 2/9. You know, so those are things that you need to kind of be mindful of. And Jennifer, you touched on something that's critical there. Not until I die that you will know what it is. I also feel that persons like that, when they think like that, they should still see a professional, because in their mind, they might be thinking that when I die, all the children will get it equally. But that may not be a practical way of looking at it. And you may be doing more harm than good, kind of thing. It's important that that whole concept of when I die, you will know. And I have no problem, because it should be like that. You should not tell people the contents of your will. It is your right, it is your asset, it is your secrecy until you die. But you must also do it in a structured manner. It should be very structured, and you must also be aware of what are the ramifications if you don't do it in a structured manner. That I think is critical, because sometimes I think families get together and they might be perfect, but they have this concept called outlaws, or what you all call in-laws. Right? And we know how that could be. Right? So when you have these X factors and these intervening individuals and circumstance, it kind of colors the water and it changes the concept. It is not a litmus test. You know, so it's important still for when somebody reaches a certain age to make sure that they get some kind of professional advice. You don't have to be in the room, because I don't see clients where their children are wrong and that kind of thing. Like if I see somebody at 100, I will be having a very rude conversation with them to find out how they think, because I have to make sure that they have sound mind when they're
Yeah.
making that will. I will ensure certain safeguards. Additionally, when older people live with younger people, they tend to want to guarantee debt obligations of their siblings. And sometimes you thinking the house is unencumbered. That time, your sister who have 4 children, because you have no child, right? She would have 4 children. She went there and have the mother stand guarantee on the house. Nobody knew, basically, because nobody thought that she would do something like that. So it's also important that when you have parents of a certain vintage, like fine wine, that you sit down around a table and you eat cheese and crackers and you try to gauge the activities surrounding your parents.
Yeah.
Because you may find yourself thinking that you own a lovely home in Diamond Vale and it is owned by a bank.
Yeah.
So those discussions are important. And I like to call that the undue influence syndrome. Now the banks they take particular care now to ensure, and there are many people who come in here, and I have a lot of older people coming here, and they come in here and they stand guarantee for their grandchildren and who start in a business. And I am like, no, 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 no. You need to get independent legal advice. You cannot stand guarantee for your grandchild and your children are unaware that this is happening. So there are things that lawyers would pick up on, especially us who are trained in particular areas, because we do real estate. So we see it all the time. I see the undue influence. We will automatically pick up the phone and call the bank. And it is strange because when an elderly person comes into us to do a mortgage, they think that we are acting for them. No, we are acting for the bank.
Yeah.
We think that they say, are going to my lawyer. No, 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 no. You need to get independent legal advice. Yes, and I will put it in writing to the bank. This lady needs independent legal advice. She is 90 years old. Is she of sound mind? Get a medical.
Yeah.
Bernard, you are touching on something that I believe we have to confront and get out of the way. And we've glossed on it that we are not the generation who've gotten professional advice. In fact, we either see getting professional advice as a sign of weakness, that something is wrong with you, you have diminished competencies, and in particular with lawyers, you are seen as sharks, you are seen as people who looking to thief my property. So why should I come to a lawyer? Now, this notion of independent legal advice, I think many people, when they go to the lawyer and the lawyer is really checking the bank, they think you are my lawyer. But a lawyer, can you speak to what role a lawyer can play in your life as an advisor, a personal advisor this time, stressing on the word independence?
Okay, I can do that, and I will do this not only from a legal perspective, but I will also do it from the perspective of what Jennifer, as a financial manager, as an auditor, as a tax consultant, as an accountant. When you retain the services of those persons, we have a fiduciary relationship to you. You know, we have to act with due care and diligence in accordance with the highest professional standards. In terms, I am taking instructions from you, the client. And sometimes I find that independent, so I am independent. I am independent from the perspective that you retain me to provide you with advice. And that's the first thing that people need to understand. I am the professional and I am advising you as to what are the possible outcomes. It is not for you to advise me. You will paint a scenario and you will give me the facts. I will then take that factual matrix and then I will tell you, I think these are your possible options. When you come to me to tell me what to do, then what you are doing is eroding my independence. And it is important. The second issue I want to talk about, and you touched on it, can we not be penny wise and pound foolish?
Yeah.
Can we not be cheap?
Yep.
We need to stop thinking about being
Yes.
cheap. We
Yes.
need to stop saying that this whole concept of lawyers are being sharks and accountants are sharks and tax advisors are. No, they're not sharks. You have to pay for services.
Yep.
Not because you're not getting a tangible mean that an intangible is worth less than a tangible. An intangible is worth just as the worth
Probably
is as
more.
equal. And I don't know if it's probably more or whatever. There is a value proposition to an intangible. And the tax advice. So for example, you may have the best intention, and I will give you a personal example here. There was a scenario where someone downloaded a will off the internet. The beneficiary, of course, was a trusted friend of the person. When you read the will, it was beautifully written. It was perfect. But the requirements in Trinidad is that you must have 2 independent witnesses, one of whom, and they must not be beneficiaries under the will. Well, of course, I tell you, the person thought they were doing the best thing. And of course, they took the advice from the testator, who is the person who is of course drafted. The testator is the person whose will you are doing, right? They took the advice because they are trusted friends. They say, you sign as a witness, I trust you. Of course, she left stuff for that beneficiary, and that beneficiary would not have gotten anything.
Yeah.
Because she signed as a beneficiary.
Yeah.
It also put the will in question in terms of collusion. So it is important that you get good, sound, independent advice. And one of the key form of evidence of independence is payment. Payment to an individual. And I always tell people, when they say, well, I have a little problem, I want to ask you a little question. Now, I have a relationship with Jennifer. She could ask me that question. We have known each other for quite a while. Because when I need financial advice, I would say, Jen, this is so-and-so. I'm just say, Bernard, that's a stupid decision you're making. And I'd be like, you think so? She's like, yes, that is a stupid decision, right? And I said, okay, fine. But I'm not giving you no legal advice. That my brain is the tool of my trade.
Yes.
Why am I giving you free legal advice? And I always tell people my office hours are 8 to 4. These are my office numbers. Do not call me and ask me to give you, because there's a liability issue there.
Yeah.
And then I can be sued because and don't only think about it from my perspective. Your children will come and sue me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is so important that we get that in, because what is happening now is some people are touting, you can get a simple will and just pay $1,500, $2,000, $1,000. And that simple will really does not cut it. And I think we need to be very wary of that, because as we say, the 20 to 40 to 50, they are not going to be in a position to protect and take care of what we have worked for, built, and want to last through the next 2 generations.
Yep.
Bernard, what I would like you to clarify too, there's also the belief that you should only do a will when you have a certain amount of assets. So you hear people might tell you, what are you doing a will for? I don't have anything. You know, what would you say to that? Is there really a amount that you should have to do a will?
Well, 2 things. I want to just comment on the last comment. A simple will of 2,000. That's not a simple will. In fact, a simple will cost you far less. A simple will cost you far less. So, and in this economic climate, $2,000 is really not a lot of money for a lifetime of protection. Because once you do the will once, it could actually, you do it properly, it is the one thing you can do that can protect you for your entire lifetime. You have a lifetime warranty on that. That's the first thing. The second thing is that a simple will has very big implications, extremely big implications. So it's important that we just get it right. And the operative statement must always be, get it right. Jennifer, no, there isn't. Once you have acquired assets, I would say you're in a position to do a will. And you can always change your will during the course of your lifetime. There's no statute of limitation on it, except, of course, if you are remarried, and there are also certain other intervening circumstances which would invalidate a will. And those things, once you develop your relationship with your professional advisors and your legal advisors, I think they would guide you accordingly. But no, you start a will, no, you get into the habit. Remember the old people a long time, when you reach the age of 16 and you used to get your book grant, they will give you that first book grant to go to the bank to open a bank account. We need to go back to that. Once you have started acquiring assets, it means that you have now put yourself at the next level. You have moved up a tier. And it means, therefore, you are now entitled to manage your affairs. In managing your affairs, you need to manage your present affairs as well as your future affairs. And it also helps you to put yourself on a trajectory. Once you put yourself on a trajectory, it means that every important event in your life, you will now be looking at, how am I going to reshape my life, my assets? And then, of course, you don't have to be scrambling when you're in your 50s. Oh, God, I'm going to retire. And be happy that they move in the retirement age from 60 to 65. That should never be the case, because you should have been planning for your retirement once you acquired a job.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just as a matter of clarification, because people, many of us who, as you said, started with nothing and built, we think an asset is something of value. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that one gold earring that I have, which we're talking about, is not seen as an asset. And unless you gift it to Jennifer or Janice while you're alive, it is the asset that has to be dealt with, and it may be sold and shared up among people, not Janice or Jennifer. So what is an asset?
What is?
What is an asset?
Well, an asset is, I mean, in the very generic sense, is property. It's all your personal property, real and personal property. So it could be land and house, your boat, your earrings, your pen, your paper, anything.
Handbags, designer handbags.
Your Birkins, you look like you have a couple. Your Birkins, anything that you have at the end of the day, that is your assets.
Things that you have and you value, what you value.
And you can monetize and you can get a value from it is. But you also have these intangible assets also. So for example, some people have shares in companies. You may have property rights, intellectual property. I could have been a Calypsonian. I may have royalties coming in. The family may have oil rights coming in. I may have a license to do something, and I get monies from that, a licensing agreement. Anything that you have, you can put a value to.
Yeah. Your grandchild may have played in a steel band on a recording, and as a player, they're entitled to royalties. So all of those things we take for granted, that there's really nothing around, and if you don't protect how those royalties, somebody will go with it. Yeah.
Indeed. You might be a musician, and you may have composed a lot of music, but at the end of the day, it's just there. And I sometimes go, I'm a Jennifer knows this, I'm a big garage sale person, right? I believe that if it could last 50 years, it could last another 50. And sometimes I see people selling manuscripts, and they have music, and all of those things, you don't sell those things for $5. Those things are of value. But people feel that when somebody dies, just get rid of the junk.
Yes.
We need to be careful how we define junk, right? Because junk has value. It's called vintage.
Yeah.
It's called vintage. And there's a higher value on vintage than junk.
Definitely.
Bernard, you have really given us a lot of food for thought. I am thinking of so many other questions that keep coming up in my head all the time as you speak. And but I know time, we have a limited amount of time. Tell me, Bernard, in terms of our audience listening, maybe thinking, okay, how do I now go about getting this professional advice? Should I, as you mentioned, we have to get used to paying for services. All right. So I would like, in you wrapping up, also give an idea. I know there's a more or less a fee structure for legal services, just an idea. So those listening can start to put your pennies together to pay for professional service. So, let us know how we can go about, what the things we should gather, how we should start thinking, starting to put things together.
Okay. I mean that's fairly straightforward though. So there are two ways, there are a number of ways. There's no, I would say, magic formula. There are some people who will insist that they will incorporate their family in doing their estate planning. So some people may say, I want to do a will and I want to keep it a secret like your mom. All you're going to know when I'm dead. Right?
Yeah.
But there are some people who will say, I want to have all my children present. I want to have agreement with them. I want them all around the table and I'm going to tell them what I think. And all of that can work also. Those wills, of course, tend to be a little more complicated because what you're doing is managing the various personalities around the table, and you're trying to say, well, okay, I know what you want to do, but maybe you all should consider X, Y, and Z because this may cause a problem in the later on. And I think in those types of scenarios, that's really where you need a lawyer present, because you would need to kind of understand the nuances of how real property operates and how property passes and the interest in property and those kinds of things. So yes, so there's no magic formula. In terms of fees, however, a simple will can cost you anything between, I would say, $1,200 to X. It all depends on what you want to put in it, and it all depends on how simplistic it is. Because you might think, oh my God, I have all these things and I need to leave something for everybody, and I may come and say, why?
Yeah.
And we go back again to the same thing. How we go look? It looks very good, but you ain't seeing it because you will be sitting down having tea with Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So that is not your preoccupation at that point in time. So at the end of the day, the one surety we know, like how we know change is the only thing that's constant. It's like our death is the only thing that we know is constant. From that perspective, I would say 1,200, and that is inclusive of probably disbursements, because what we do, and most of the major law firms will do it. If you are part of an FIP, you get a discount. If you're part of TAR, you get a discount.
Okay.
All of those things. But most people will, I think on average out there, I know a will might be, as you said, 2000, 2005, right? Yeah. We will also guide you in terms of where to keep it. I have wills in here from 1960 something. We don't like keeping it, but sometimes we have to.
Yeah.
We will also be able to test the temperature in terms of whether somebody's forcing somebody to do a will, providing undue influence. And I had a real live example where a lady came in to two examples I want to draw to your attention. One is where the lady came in, and just like how the two of you all nodding at me just like that, she was nodding and smiling. How are you? And she was asking all the pleasantries. Beautiful salutations. But Jennifer, you know me. I was like, this woman not right in her head. This is something not right.
Yeah.
When you do hear the shout, the lady had Alzheimer's. I was kind of questioning the lady. And I said, well, she can't make a will, right? Because she's not in the mental capacity to be able to make a will. The second issue was where a lady came in looking very fine and dandy, like both of you all. Very proper, speaking well, brought in her mother. And the lady said, well, my mother wants to make a will. I said, Mom, you want to make a will? Oh, yes. When I did the litmus test, she was perfect. Good, sound mind. So I said, well, okay, folks, you need to leave the room. She's like, no, I'm not leaving. My mother is fine with me leaving. She said, Mommy, and you're fine? Yes, I'm fine. I said, no, I don't ever take instructions while somebody is present unless all of the parties and unless so and so and so. Anyhow, she left the room. The mother was like, oh God, thank you. She put in pressure on me to make this will. So and so and so and so and so and so. I said, well, I am your lawyer. You are paying my fees. Here is what we are going to do. Yeah. We will do two wills. I will do the one that she thinks that she is going to do because she's going to ask you for a copy of it.
Yeah.
And then I will date it and I will put 10:35. And then I will do another will and I will put 11 o'clock. So that whoever is reading it, and I will revoke the old will. I will keep the one at 11 o'clock. You will brandy around the one that she wants you to have. You understand? So those are the kind of guidance that we will be able to provide once we are able to speak to the client quietly. Now, if I speak to the client quietly, and the client then says, bring in all of the family members, then I will adhere to her, right? Yeah. Because she has now instructed me to do that. But I will also tell her, I want you to tell me, oh my God, I need a cup of ginger tea in the event that you want them to leave the room so that you and I can caucus.
Yes. Yes.
Bernard, that is so reassuring because really, you're under duress.
Yes.
You know, you feel obligated, and especially in a case where that person may be your caregiver. You know, you don't want any repercussions. So you tend to say what you think they want you to say. So what you have said, they're very, very reassuring, and it's all reason why we all should definitely look at doing a will.
Yeah.
And safeguard ourselves and our family, not ourselves, as you said, we will be speaking to Jesus at that time. So definitely the importance, you have really given all the reasons why we at this stage, and because we are referring to the 5.8 generation, that is critical for us to seek professional help and do that will. I mean, we have a lot more we can chat on, but you know, for this show, I really want to thank you so much,
Jennifer,
so much.
Before we do that, Bernard, can you speak about powers of attorney? I think it's important to bring that in, just generally about how they should be used and what are their limitations.
Okay. A power of attorney. Well, first of all, I'd say this: a power of attorney is a document where you have given someone the authority to do something which you have an exclusive right to do. So, for example, the right to sell property, the right to transact on your behalf, the right to be able to enter into agreements, the right to be able to settle agreements on your behalf. A power of attorney is a written document. It must be filed in the land registry. And for the 5.8 generation, it must be filed in the Red House, right? So the original document is kept in the Red House, and you get what you get is a certified copy of it. A power of attorney could be very general in terms of, I give you all the powers that I have to do whatever I can do, or I can make it very specific. I can say only to sell the property at Lystancia Drive, Digger Martin, or to sell motor vehicle PAZ 1257, or basically to transact, to deal with anything relating to my mother at X nursing home. So it all depends on the extent in which you want to give that power of attorney. Like I said, that power of attorney must be registered in order for it to be valid and binding. But you as the donor, you can also revoke that power of attorney at any point in time. And a lot of people give power of attorneys and they don't revoke it. And it's amazing. Even myself as a lawyer, I have power of attorneys for two of my very good friends. So opposite where I used to live on Dundonald Hill, the person who bought the apartment, her brother is my really good friend. So when he emigrated, he gave me a general power of attorney to deal with all of his affairs. When she went to study, because her parents were getting a divorce at the time, she gave me a power of attorney also on her behalf. So I have two general power of attorneys for two individuals. She owns the property in which she resides in on Dundonald Hill, which I sold to her. She owns the property which her mother has. She owns another piece of property with her brother. I can sell that property very easy. Thank God my grandmother raised me well.
Right.
And we always joke about it. We joke about it. But I keep telling her, you need to revoke these power of attorney.
Yeah.
Because those things are like giving the crown jewels. So you don't give them to any and any lagahu. You have to give them to people, and you have to be 100% sure when you're giving them that those persons will act with due care in the highest professional standard.
Yep.
Power of attorney also, remember, it is supposed to be, you are now a substitute for me, who give the donor. So if I go mad, it means that I can't transact business on my behalf. The power of attorney comes to an end.
Nice. Yes.
It automatically comes to an end.
Yeah.
If I die, the power of attorney comes to an end. So you'll find a lot of people have power of attorney, and then they go to the bank and they never report to the bank that the person has died. And they keep withdrawing money from the account and the estate. And of course, the person didn't leave the monies in the bank for them, but they have the bank card. So I will advise people to be, I'm very hesitant about giving people power of attorneys. And I also tell the banks that if you give someone a power of attorney, they must submit, when you get to 5.8, you have to sign a declaration every year.
A life
to say that
certificate.
that you're alive and kicking. Make sure that they deliver that life certificate every single year. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I think because people believe that a power of attorney is a substitute for estate planning and legacy.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah. And I just want to say one thing. I know you all didn't ask this question, but I want to just harp on one issue. When you have a will and you die, and when somebody dies, even though notwithstanding what the law says, there's a process that has to occur in order for assets to pass from the deceased to the beneficiaries. And that means that you have a will, the will must be probated.
Yes.
There's a formal court process that you have to do. And if they die without a will, which is intestate, they have to apply for letters of administration. Right? And that's a form. You just don't hand over the property like that. You must go through. And we, a certain person, especially if them 5.8s, they may have inherited they inherited something. They have the will and they're waving the will left, right, and center, but they never probated it.
Yeah.
They don't have it.
Yeah. Or some of us might be entitled to a half share in a property, and because we have done well, the property may have been located in the east in Mausika, which used to be bush.
Yeah.
But now Mausika is prime property. So we didn't do anything at all with it. And I think it's important that people understand, especially people of a certain ilk. Again, you cannot be penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah.
I think that is the gist of what we have to
Yes.
I think it is. This is perfect.
You know what I find, Terri-Ann? After Andrew last week with the property, I now have to go and review and clean my tanks and do a lot of things and fix my property. Now after Bernard, I now have to use Bernard professional services and redo my will now, covering certain. I thought I had things covered, but Bernard, thanks to you. Again, it is so important when, we have a professional like yourself coming to talk on these things that pushes us to say, yeah, we need to act differently and take action. Stop putting it off. We reach this stage, it's time to take action.
Spend the money. Yeah. Spend the money.
Spend the money that we
spend the money.
Always find the professional services too expensive.
Yeah. My neighbor I have a neighbor when I used to live, and I grew up very humbly, and she always tells me, because we are from the generation of saving, you must save. She says, work and spend, God will send. And if you believe in that philosophy, work and spend, God will send. And I am beginning to see the value. Don't deprive yourself of certain things and the comforts of life, because that car that you deprived yourself of, when you give that to your children, they will spend that money in that bank account in 2 seconds.
Yes.
What you holding for 20, 30 years will go in one calendar year. And they will be back where they were when you said, oh gosh, I have to help.
Yeah, indeed,
Yes.
indeed.
Yes, great. Thank you
So,
so very much.
Luna, thank you so much. You're going to be hearing from me on a professional level to redo my will. Yeah, definitely.
You're most welcome, and thank you for having me. And I'm free to do another session if you all need, and we can
Right,
probably
great.
structure it a little differently in terms of the other side. In terms of on the property side, whatever you need, I can render some services to you if you need.
All right, great.
That's great.
Oh, Terri-Ann, what an interview. Information, and such critical information for us, you know? So, at the end of it all, we should get that will. If we have a will already, my advice is to review it, you know, ensure that we did it right in the first place, and all the important aspects that we want to cover, that it will be covered, and ensure that we have a professional to guide us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So join us next week when we continue with another important professional service provider that we have to be close with to ensure that we are living our best lives.
Yes.
See you next
So we see you next week.
week.
Yeah.
Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.